Drive Live Formula One.
A very good morning to you, and it's an early morning, but it'll be the last one for a little while for those listening in the UK. Welcome to live coverage of the Japanese Grand Prix weekend. Free practice 3 on the way, and the final chance for teams to set up their cars and power units before we go qualifying in a few hours' time. Friday's running yesterday has left a few teams with work to do coming into this morning, but it certainly looks like Mercedes are once again the team to beat, but maybe with some surprise challenges. Guiding you through every step of the way from the commentary box is myself, Harry Benjamin, but keeping her ear to the ground for us down in pit lane, let's say good morning for the first time to Jenny Gao.
Good morning. Another beautiful day here at Suzuka in Japan. The grandstands are packed full of people, blue skies and sunshine. Still a little bit chilly, and the wind has picked up quite a lot actually from yesterday, and it's going to be a headwind, I think, at the moment, looking at the flags that are fluttering nicely in the breeze. Not a good start to the day though for Lando Norris. He didn't have the best day yesterday, lost a lot of running with a hydraulic leak, and now the car is up on its stands, it's in pieces, the seat is just forlornly sat in front of me with no one in it, because they have identified an ERS pack issue. That's the ERS issue with the electrics of the pack, which is now needing to be replaced. At the moment, McLaren say it's unlikely that they'll be able to take part in FP3. They are preparing the car just in case, but it's not the job of a moment. It's quite an integrated part that needs to be replaced. So another failure for this team, and it seems, Harry, that they are being a little beset by failures, especially on Lando's side of the garage.
Yeah, it's not been a smooth weekend for Lando Norris so far. Was on the back foot in free practice 2 yesterday with a suspected hydraulic leak. Did eventually get out there, but didn't get all the lappage he would have liked, and this all comes off the back of the DNS for Lando and his teammate Oscar Piastri in China as well. Couldn't even start the Grand Prix. Lando Norris actually now down on batteries for the season. He's lost one of his 3 allocated batteries for the year, so that could result in a grid penalty later down the line. British racing driver Alice Powell is up with us in the commentary box for the rest of the weekend. Good morning, Alice.
Good morning.
Not great for Lando and McLaren, is it?
No, they've had not a great start to the year, have they? Certainly on Oscar's side, he's not even started a Grand Prix so far this year. So, yeah, they're just struggling to get that power unit and get everything talking to each other, and they obviously know the circuit, but there's nothing like getting track time, valuable track time for both cars, let alone for the drivers as well, to get used to this, all that data gathering that they need. It's crucial to get, and they're not going to be getting it.
No, they're not. But let's see. It doesn't sound like Lando Norris is going to get out in this session, but we hope to see him for qualifying, but certainly on the back foot, but might be able to take some learnings from Piastri. Jenny.
I just find it interesting that McLaren are the ones being with all these issues, and Mercedes HPP, who supply the power unit, they don't seem to be having all these issues with reliability. They have had some issues, but it doesn't seem to be with the engine. If you look up and down the grid, other people are supplied by Mercedes. Alpine, one of them. I don't think they've had any issues. No, I don't think they've had any issues so far with that power unit. And Williams, who have got their own issues, but not normally power units. So I wonder if it's the design of the car that's tighter, or there's something going on that is leading to the HPP issues that the team are struggling with.
Quite possibly. Well, obviously Mercedes build and supply the engines, and they don't have to supply all the data that comes with it in terms of how best to run the engine. They get that advantage as being the Mercedes supplier to themselves. So, and they can build their car around it, whereas the likes of McLaren, Williams, Alpine here's the engine, good luck.
Yeah, pretty much. Turns up to their door. Here you go. Make that fit into your car. Whereas, of course, as you said, Harry, Mercedes have had all this information, but of course it's their power unit, so they've been able to have the info to make it fit their car. And whatever's going on at McLaren, something keeps causing an error, it seems, with the power unit and some of the parts on McLaren, because as Jenny pointed out, there has been problems with the Alpine, but they've not really had bigger issues as McLaren. Like I said, Oscar had, the first race in Australia was his fault, but of course they didn't have the drivers start at the last time out in China. And talking of Alpine, we have one going on to the track.
We do indeed. Green light on at the end of the pit lane, and FP3 is underway for those who wish to do a sync up. It's coming at you now. 59 minutes and 12, 11, 10, 9 seconds remaining, and it is Franco Colapinto in the pink and blue Alpine, who is the first and so far only car out on track. The Argentine driver who picked up his first points for Alpine last time out in China, and had a solid race actually, even though he found himself being biffed round at turn 1 in China by Esteban Ocon. Still managed to recover and get himself back to steal a point for 10th place, so a good start for Colapinto. Have to say, Suzuka is looking rather beautiful today. The sun is out, blue skies, grandstands are absolutely filled, and we know the Japanese fans absolutely love it when Formula One comes to town. Air temperature just under 16 degrees, track temperature 35.5 degrees, and still a lot of the drivers not in too much of a rush to get out for FP3. Do like to save their tyres at this stage, normally, is what we see, so they tend to see and let others clean up the track before we get going again. But Colapinto deciding he wants to get out there early doors. Alice, this is your first 5 Live of the year, isn't it? So it'd be great to get your general thoughts on where you've seen the season so far. Your thoughts. It's not been a start without controversy.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this, weren't we, before we came on air, because we haven't seen each other.
And it's been too long, Alice.
It's been so long. Don't know how we've coped.
Well, I think I did see you last week, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. But we've obviously not worked together and chatted really about Formula One. Look, I have mixed feelings about it. Obviously, as a driver myself, when you're seeing the sport that you've grown up watching and loving and really enjoying, and you're seeing the drivers having to harvest this energy, and particularly going through 130R yesterday, it was quite sad to listen to the sounds and watch the onboard. But at the same time, we wanted more interesting racing, and so far we've been getting that. So if we can now try and work out a way, which they seem to have been doing for many years, where we get the best of both worlds, where we get cars on the absolute limit and fantastic racing, then great, I'm all for it. So it still is early days. Look, the teams want it to be exciting, drivers want to have exciting racing, but they also want to be pushing a car on the limit. And I think it's nice to see that the FIA have made that change in recharge for qualifying, so hopefully we're going to see some improvements with drivers not having to do as much lifting and coasting and recharging. So yeah, I'm a little bit mixed with how I feel, but I think the season that we've had, the start of the season so far, has been really exciting. Antonelli, he's taking it at the moment to his more experienced teammate, the battles with Ferrari. It's great to see, obviously, Lewis Hamilton enjoying himself a lot more. So I'm still really excited for the season ahead. There's still plenty of unknowns. We wouldn't have thought going into this weekend, particularly George Russell said, didn't he? He thought, McLarens are faster than we thought. If they sort out their reliability, potentially, we could have them battling alongside the Mercedes during the rest of the weekend. I'm still excited. I'm still a big fan of Formula One. There is obviously tweaks that the teams and the FIA, it's the biggest shake-up of the regs we've had in an extremely long time, so we've just got to give it time.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think everyone knows it's not perfect, particularly in qualifying. We've got this 5-week gap coming up after this weekend, so the teams, along with Formula 1, the FIA, will be looking at what solutions they can implement for the rest of the year to make sure Formula 1 still is Formula 1 and still has that flat out on the edge nature, and drivers on the edge of adhesion, particularly in qualifying. Just to pick up on your point about the change to the rules this weekend, it's a fairly minor change, I think, considering the track we've got and from what we've seen when it comes to energy harvesting in practice yesterday. But the teams, along with the FIA and the F1, they met to discuss the qualifying issue to try and find improvements before Miami in 5 weeks' time. And as a result of that, the FIA has issued a change for this weekend's race to reduce the total amount of energy that cars can recover in one lap. It was 9 megajoules, it's now down to 8. So the reason is that should mean the drivers and cars have to do less recovery during a qualifying lap, but the recovery demands at a track like this are higher than, say, what we saw in China, where you're able to harvest a lot under braking with heavy braking zones. Here, don't really have that many.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of the figure for full throttle percentage, but it's certainly it's a high one here. We've got some long straights. It's a tough track to regenerate the energies. Is Gasly, for example, going through 130R, probably just caught a glimpse through your ears of him sort of lifting off pretty much through 130R. I mean, one thing I do certainly like is the less downforce.
I think the cars, they look lighter, more nimble. I love that. I
think they look better, like you said, lighter, nimble. We see the drivers fighting them a little bit more, and that's the thing. If they're doing less recharge, particularly through the SSO 3, 4, 5, 6, we can get to a stage where they're not having to do as much of that sort of recharge, then we're going to see cars make mistakes, be on the edge. Of course, we saw plenty of cars making mistakes like Spoon and Degner yesterday, and that's not just because the cars are hard. We've also had the tracks resurfaced, but no, I think it's obviously the first year. We have to give it time, and yeah, we'll see where we are, and potentially could be different this time next year.
Absolutely. I think look, we're still very, very early stages in this season, and we've got this big break, so let's just keep an eye on how things shape up. 52 minutes and 32 seconds. A few more cars out on track now, joining the two Alpine. Sergio Perez's Cadillac. This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton, who's just gone fastest in the first sector. Bottas, Stroll, and the two Hasses are now out on track. That makes it 8 cars on the circuit, but the top 2 lap times are Pierre Gasly with a 1:32.860 on the medium tyre, and Franco Colapinto a 1:33.6 also on the medium tyre. Jenny.
I keep forgetting that Franco Colapinto didn't do this race last year. So he is one of the debutants when it comes to racing around Suzuka, and is very keen to learn the track, learn as much as he can. The other one is the car I'm standing in front of, car number 41, Arvid Lindblad. He didn't have a great day yesterday. He had to do a gearbox change, so he lost a lot of running in FP2 and sat basically on the sidelines on the pit wall watching on. So he'll be keen to get out there, just doing the finishing touches to put the tyres on at the back, because they're just putting the drums on at the moment. So hopefully he'll be out soon. But just talking about the team principals, I was passing the F1 hospitality unit on the way down here, and they were all huddled. The team principals were huddled in a meeting that was meant to be behind kind of a bit of a wall in the hospitality unit, but there are so many of them now that it kind of leaked out, so you could see them a little bit. And I just wonder, Matteo Binotto's only just got to the Audi pit wall, so it might have gone on a little bit later, but I wonder what they might have been talking about, and if it is a case of, right, we need to address still more of the qualifying situation. We want to make it look better, we want to make it sound better when it comes to engine clipping, and the drivers would have met last night with the FIA, with their team representatives as well, and discuss what they feel And I think those sessions, as Alice will know, when the drivers actually all get together and chat about it and hear what the FIA have to say in F1, I think those are the most interesting feedback that the whole of F1 can get. The 22 drivers that are actually out there experiencing it for real, and they've all got together and they'll have their own thoughts on how this can get better, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But for now, I think we have to just focus on what we're getting on track, which is Ollie Bearman making his way through the second Degner. Bearman, who has had a brilliant start to the season, sitting up 5th in the Drivers' Championship. I don't think he's under any illusion that he's in a fight for that position and can hold on to it to the end of the year. But as the back end of the Haas slides out of the hairpin as he now makes his way towards Spoon Curve. But brilliant start so far, Alice, for Bearman this year.
No, yeah, I think he's had such a solid start to the year, and we've kind of known that he's got this flashes of speed. But I think, let's not get too carried away. We're on the 3rd race of the season, but I think, to have that almost a little bit of dominance already, particularly with these new regulations, not as much experience of regulations change, well, no experience really, compared to his teammate. I think he's doing a solid job. And also want to jump back to Arvid Lindblad as well. Yep. Another driver that I am just so impressed with. Had a bit of a struggle in Formula 2 last year, a bit of a yo-yo season, but he's basically taken as a duck to water, hasn't he? He's done such a good job. And some people are saying, it's fairly easy for rookies coming in for regulation change, because I've heard people say, what's the same for Hadjar? It's new regulations. But still, it's making that jump up to Formula 1 and dealing with, he's not had to come in and sort of recharge in Formula 2 and bits and bobs like that. Having the less downforce, that's probably going to suit him slightly because of Formula 2. But making that step for any driver, whatever your experience, into Formula 1, I'm hugely impressed with him. And the traffic wars start already.
Yeah, he blocked me at the end of the lap. Yeah, didn't look great.
And Bottas is not happy with, I'm not sure who that was.
I think it was one of the Hasses, which could have been Bearman or Esteban Ocon, who I think are both out there at the moment. But certainly Perez finding himself caught out coming through 130R. Yeah, Arvid Lindblad in particular, I think it's the way he conducts himself actually in interviews. He speaks. All the rookies are so mature, compared to the rookies that we had 10 years ago or even further back than that. Just 18 years of age, and was very, very realistic about what happened in China. Missed out on the only practice session, was a sprint weekend, never done a sprint before, never raced in China. He had a tough weekend, all things considered, but still managed to finish the Chinese Grand Prix in 12th. Liam Lawson picked up some points though in 7th, so didn't quite have the same weekend as Lawson, and he will be on the back foot this weekend now, having missed a running yesterday and now trying to make up for that lost time. But he is out on the circuit with just over 47 minutes left to run, and it is Lewis Hamilton who tops the times as he crosses the line in his Ferrari on the soft tyre, a 1:31.056. Gasly on the medium still holds second, then it's Colapinto in third, Bearman, Perez, Ocon the top 6, with Bottas and Stroll the 8 drivers who have set any kind of lap time.
So Mr. Lindblad is out on track at the moment, 7/10 of a second off what Lewis Hamilton has set. Lewis on the soft tyre, and if we're going to compare to the times yesterday, Lewis is about 9/10 of a second off what we saw Oscar Piastri set, and a similar time actually to what he set yesterday. But he wasn't particularly happy, was he, Lewis, yesterday? He was kind of a bit down in the dumps and said just has no confidence, has no pace. He was pretty much matching his teammate, but it probably wouldn't look as bad for Ferrari. But of course, we've got the 2 McLarens that were in front of them, so that's probably why they're thinking it's not been great. But these few upgrades that they've bought don't really seem to be working too much for them at the moment.
No, Ferrari looked good on the medium tyre yesterday, but not on the softs, and struggling with overall grip out there for both Charles Leclerc and Ollie Bearman, all slip of the tongue there, Lewis Hamilton. Maybe that's a Bearman future Ferrari driver. Who knows, as a Ferrari young back driver. Talk of struggles yesterday, Red Bull were another team that looked all out of sorts. They looked like a midfield team, and it's because that's where they kind of sit when it comes to performance. Lacked grip, lacked overall balance, nothing spectacular from Verstappen or indeed Isaac Hadjar. Jenny, it's a tough weekend for Red Bull right now.
Yeah, they're not happy, are they, with the feeling of the car, the balance of the car. Max Verstappen was quite candid yesterday, just saying it doesn't feel great. They've got new side pod geometry this weekend, but I don't know how much that's really affecting things. It doesn't seem to have made anything better, that's for sure. And Paul Monahan, who's one of their chief mechanics, is just stood at the back of the car with a pots of Flovies in his hand, bright kind of... It's that greeny yellow colour with just a normal paintbrush in there, and he's looking around. I don't really know if he knows what he's meant to be doing with that. Surely that's someone else's job. Anyway, they're just putting together the rear right of that car. I'm not sure what the problem was, but it's taken a little bit of time. Max has now got into the car, and I can't tell you how many photographers were there just taking images of Max getting into his Red Bull. It was like a whole scene. One of the mechanics, a guy called Ollie, who does the pit lane doodles, which is a Koi kart this weekend, by the way, he couldn't even get into his own garage. There were so many photographers, and he said, how many pictures of Max do they actually need? I couldn't answer that, but he's not out, and nor is Isaac Hadjar on the other side, who is not being photographed by many people at all in comparison.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, keeping an eye on the photographer count. Appreciate that, as Sergio Perez a few moments ago locks up his front right tyre and takes to the runoff area at the final chicane, and I think could have chucked the right a bit sooner to avoid the gravel runoff. I think he forgot that was there.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. He kind of was like, where's the runner? Then it was too late, and we're getting sorry sight pictures of Lando Norris's car up on the high stands. Plenty of mechanics around working on the car, and not a great start to the new year for the champion.
Yeah, it's not an ERS issue. I mean, we were talking about this, obviously, as McLaren are Mercedes customers. When it comes to the engine, we can say good afternoon or good morning. I lose track of what time of day it is somewhere in the world, but let's bring in the BBC F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson. Hello, Andrew, all well?
All well, thank you, Harry. It's just about still the morning here, by the way.
Just about, okay.
You can't just look at the timing screens, you know.
Well, you know, sometimes I can't see where the clock is. But let's talk about this issue then with McLaren. I mean, it's been... China was a disaster, really, with neither car starting. Is it just a simple case that we were talking about, they all do get the same Mercedes engine? Is it just pure luck that they've struggled?
Well, yes, basically, as it happens, when the news from McLaren came through, and by the way, I've been trying to talk to some people at McLaren this morning, and I haven't been able to get hold of anybody, and they're all, the one person I have been trying to talk to was rushing around with a very stressed face, so I figured something was going on before this was announced. But anyway, when it was announced, I was in Mercedes talking to Deputy Team Principal Bradley Lord, and I said, why are all these problems happening for McLaren? And he goes, well, actually, all the batteries are on the edge, and we're having to manage them as we go. It's just that they've been really unlucky that these problems that have stopped running have all happened to them. So it's not a McLaren thing; it is a Mercedes issue. And yeah, you're right, Harry. That's just bad luck, really.
Yeah, I think it was George Russell who alluded to that kind of thing yesterday, where he said it could have been any one of us to have these issues. Mercedes, Alpine, Williams. It just so happens to be on the McLaren car, and particularly so on the reigning world champions car. So Lando Norris still very much in the pit lane, and doesn't look like he will be getting out in this session as Max Verstappen and Isaac Hadjar now come out. And it's a fairly busy Suzuka track at the moment, with only the two Cadillacs and Lance Stroll along with McLaren's Norris in the pit lane. We're going to ride on board and hear the sounds of Valtteri Bottas making his way through the left-hander of 130R.
He was there again, same place. Okay, he's not helping us.
Oh, maybe he's doing it on purpose.
But I'm not sure I can quite get on board.
I think it was a Haas.
It was a Haas again.
Oh, I tell you what though, Oscar Piastri has got in the way of Hulkenberg there. That's a little bit naughty. We've seen a lot of this. I don't remember this being as bad last year.
Oh my God, the McLaren.
Yeah, that wasn't very nice.
So that's very similar to what Franco Colapinto was doing yesterday, weaving left and right, warming up his tyres in the run down to 130R, and Franco Colapinto had Max Verstappen all over the back of him and on a quick lap. Colapinto was investigated for that and taken to the stewards, and he received a warning, which now, as that incident between Piastri and Hulkenberg has been noted, I pretty much expect Piastri to get the exact same punishment, which isn't really a punishment because it's practice, and they'll just get a warning for that one. But
yeah, but clearly they don't know what time it is and they're half asleep as well, because it's quite simple. Don't get in the way, especially weaving left to right. I know they might be approaching a little bit slower than in previous years, but still they're on a push lap, and Antonelli now, he's jumped to the top of the times on soft tyre. Actually looking at Lewis Hamilton half a second behind his teammate, but also Antonelli just over a tenth ahead of his teammate George Russell, who's in third.
Yeah, Antonelli's looking pretty tidy at the moment. So 1:34.18 on the soft tyre, a tenth clear of Charles Leclerc. Then it's Russell, Hamilton and Piastri, the top five, covered by just over 7.5 tenths of a second. Gasly is sixth ahead of Bortoletto. Lindblad, Lawson and Behrman are the top 10, as Hulkenberg actually just gets himself up inside the top 10. Sainz down in 12th, Colapinto and Ocon the top 14, with Perez, Bottas, Alonso and Stroll, the 18 cars who have set any kind of lap time. The two Red Bulls are on their first flying laps now, Hadjar and Verstappen on the medium tyres. Alex Albon, who is also out there, he's on a lap coming through the middle sector now on a soft tyre. So we'll see what they've got shortly. 38 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock. Let's head back down to pit lane. Jen.
Yes, just down at McLaren, Lando Norris is talking to his performance engineer and his race engineer on the side by the car. Now it's come down from its high blocks, which is a good sign. I've just asked the team, is there any update when it comes to what time he might be able to go out? They're still pushing it. They're hopeful, but who knows if they can actually get him out into this session. But it does look better when the car's down on the ground rather than up and 2 feet in the air.
Certainly does. Let's keep fingers crossed then. But a tricky day for some up and down the pit lane, as we see Max Verstappen, who has been very vocal about his disdain for the new regulations this year and not happy so far this weekend with a Red Bull that doesn't seem to have grip or balance, puts himself into sixth on the medium tyre, 1.1 seconds away. Piastri's out there on the soft tyre. He improves as he crosses the line now, gets to within 4 tenths of a second of Kimi Antonelli, but Piastri only fourth. Piastri, who did actually turn a few heads yesterday, particularly George Russell's head and Mercedes' head, by topping the session with a 1:30.133. We're still a few tenths away from getting down to that lap at the moment, but certainly that McLaren running well. And having a look at some of the data after practice, it's quite interesting to see the different deployment schedules from Mercedes and McLaren, actually, even though, as we've discussed, both use Mercedes engines. But from yesterday, Mercedes very much deploying less energy on the main straight and more on the stretch down to 130R, whereas Piastri decides he wants to do more on the main straight, but that costs him going up through the S's then, as he has to harvest more. So it's so interesting that I think personally the nuances of same engine, different techniques, but one is certainly better than the other, and they only figure that out once they look at the data at the end of the practice.
Yeah, and it also works out to how your car handles as well. Maybe McLaren feel, well, we haven't really got the grip that we got that Mercedes have got. So let's just take the opportunity to blow more on the main straight and maybe harvest a little bit, because we just don't have the mechanical or the aero grip that Mercedes have. But a lot of time, they haven't just obviously rocked up and gone, do you know what, we're just going to deploy more here. A lot of time has gone on the simulator from the teams. They'll have the simulators running overnight just to make sure that they're doing things correctly. So it will probably change a little bit over the weekend of where they might want to deploy, but they pretty much know coming into the weekend where it's going to be, because they would have spent hours and hours testing it all out on the simulator. So we'll see. But Charles Leclerc now has jumped ahead of the two Mercedes. Track evolution's been a massive thing here, particularly with this new tarmac as well. We have got a couple of support races here in Japan this weekend, but there's nothing like Formula One putting down their own rubber. And Hadjar is out on track as well now, Harry, but he has set a time, but he's down in 15th place.
Yeah, and it's going again, but Leclerc back to the top of the times, 1:32.29. His teammate Lewis Hamilton swings his Ferrari round the final corner now, doesn't improve up the order, does get the overall improvement on lap time, but still stays down in 5th spot. But this Suzuka circuit, 18 turns, 10 to the right, 8 to the left, the only figure of 8 circuits on the calendar, just over 5.8 kilometres in length, was resurfaced ahead of last year's race from the exit of the first chicane down, final chicane down through the first sector, and this year then it's essentially the rest of the track has been resurfaced ahead of the weekend. So that is going to lead to sort of smoother, potentially lower grip conditions, so expecting the track then to ramp up continually as we get more and more track time and lay down more and more rubber. And I suppose another thing to note this year is as grip increases, harvesting can actually become a bit more difficult, because your braking points become later, your cornering can become faster. So whilst they will have a lot of predetermined setup coming into this weekend, out the window when you reduce from 9 to 8 megajoules the amount that you can recharge over a lap a day before, but you still have to tweak and fine-tune throughout the course of a weekend.
Yeah, and particularly with the tarmac. Of course, let's say we rock up to a place like Bahrain. Okay, we're not going to Bahrain. That's meant to be the next scheduled race. They've done testing there. They've got so much information. The track's the same. They know what the track evolution is going to be, what the grip levels are going to be. Coming here with majority of the circuit resurfaced, it's all new. They do scan the track. They do get data from the Pirelli, and across the weekend you'll see the engineers and members of each team go around and sort of scan the track themselves, and that gets fed back to the simulator. As I said, the simulator will be working around the clock, but there's nothing like when you have a track that's like this with this new surface, that you are learning on the job. You're constantly learning, and I noticed that's one thing that Hannah Schmidt said yesterday as she was talking about Red Bull's woes in the Friday woes for them. She said, look, a lot of it we're still learning a lot because of this new tarmac. We still have done plenty of work, of course, coming here, but we are still learning. So we've still got plenty of areas to work on, which is obvious from the timing screen. But she said we're still gathering that vital data, that vital information when it comes to tyre strategy for the remainder of the weekend.
Yeah, Hannah Schmidt, Red Bull's chief strategist. Just over half an hour left on the clock. Jenny, news on Aston Martin.
Yes, Lance Stroll is in the pit lane still. They're just doing some work to the front end of the car, basically. They've taken the wing off and they're just looking into that. They're also taping up some of the drums at the back of the car as well. So more interesting options for trying to get this car running a little bit better. The front wing, I haven't had a decent look at it this year, so I don't know if it's new for this weekend or not. I'll have to check. But it's more scalloped than any of the other wings, really. It's a thing of beauty, but very intricate for this new evolution of cars. But yeah, he's getting ready to go out, hopefully, in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I don't think they've specifically brought a new front wing this weekend. Red Bull, I mean, at least on the declaration, They've got some new bits to the side pod, the engine cover, the floor and the rear corner, which they were trying out yesterday. Haas have got some new bits on their front wing. Alpine have brought some bits to the front of the car and the rear wing, and actually Cadillac have brought their first meaningful upgrade, according to Valtteri Bottas, with their diffuser, which has actually added more load and stability, according to Bottas. So a good step in the right direction for the newest team on the block, with Bottas and Perez currently 18th and 19th, 3 and 3.5 seconds off the pace ahead, though, of those two Aston Martins. Still no Stroll. He is still no Norris, I should say. He's not been able to get out on track with an ERS issue, an issue with the energy recovery system to do with the Mercedes power unit on board that McLaren. 30 minutes and 5 seconds remain. Charles Leclerc fastest at the moment on the soft tyre, a 1/10.5 quicker than George Russell. But Kimi Antonelli, who sits third, has just gone fastest in the middle sector.
He's still looking for some high-speed front.
Yeah, but like a massive amount, like a tiny bit. Like now it feels like I need 6 clicks.
That's Max Verstappen's radio, looking for some more high speed on the front. 6 clicks, Alice?
Needs more power. More power. As we're just getting a shot of Charles Leclerc getting a massive slide. It's I wonder how long, if things don't change through the course of this season and maybe into next, who knows, they probably will. I wonder how long we'll see Max hanging around, because he very much enjoyed his outing in his GT car, and I'm pretty sure that someone told me he was out testing potentially. Correct me if I'm wrong, Harry, and if you know, Fuji, was he out this week as well doing some? He
was racing a Nissan GT car. I don't know if that was I'm not sure if it was testing. I don't know if it was just a bit of fun or not for him, but he was certainly enjoying life with a roof over his head, that's for sure.
Yeah, and he very much enjoyed himself, as we've just seen some shots of Lando Norris getting suited and booted, putting his helmet on as well, and potentially, let's see if Piastri is in the pit, so I wonder if that was Lando's car that we were hearing that was firing up. But positive signs potentially down at McLaren.
George Russell, that's the sound you can hear, making his way through Spoon Curve, down that stretch towards 130R. Now the active aero operating, straight line mode where the front and the rear wing both open and then shut, coming through the corners. Fastest in the first sector, fastest in the middle sector. Last lap around, Antonelli did go quickest by 0.3 of a second, a 1:29.929 on the softs. George Russell looks on course to pip his teammate just by 11 thousandths of a second. The two Mercedes nip and tuck, and this is what we need from both George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. I think there was a bit of nervousness and maybe inevitability after Australia, that with all of the experience George Russell has and the car that he has now underneath him, that he might well walk this championship. But I think what Kimi Antonelli was able to display in China a couple of weeks ago, and what we've so far seen this weekend, he might well be able to give his more experienced teammate a good run for his money. I
can't remember the exact words Toto Wolff used on the radio, but he pretty much said, we knew you had this in you. And because he put a lot of trust, you know, they obviously replaced Lewis Hamilton with a rookie who skipped Formula 3, essentially. He didn't do the traditional up the ranks where they do F4, Formula Regional, a lot of people do now, into F3, F2. 1 year of F2 experience. And a lot of people, and I was also one of them, that was a bit like, oh, is this too much? He's still so young, still a lot to learn. And okay, he had his moments. He was a bit up and down. He had that huge crash, didn't he, when he stepped in the car down at Monza. And again, that was another time where quite a few people were saying, oh, maybe it's a bit too easy. But the teams obviously know a lot more than they do, and Toto certainly has, at the moment, 100% got it correct, because he is giving it to his teammate, and the display that he put on at China a few weeks ago was hugely impressive.
We're seeing Lando Norris sat in the cockpit of his McLaren, getting buckled in, car down off the jacks. Good work from McLaren and the mechanics and the engineers in the garage to look like they're going to get that car out. Jenny, I think you're outside. You got good view.
Yeah, I have a great view of Lando Norris as he just got into the car. They're just doing some final bits of touching up, making sure it's all clean and tidy. We just spoke to the guys at McLaren and just said, are you going to get him out then? And they were still thinking, oh, it's going to be a bit close. So they said the official line was still working on it, but doing all we can to get out. To me, that looks like very much ready to get out. Tyres are on, blankets are on. TV coming down, sits right in front of the driver on the halo just to see all the information screens. So I think almost ready to go out. And I was just walking past Mercedes on my way to McLaren, and it struck me when you were talking about that. When we were speaking to Kimi on Thursday, he said winning that race was life-changing. And that's what he described it as. And I think it's definitely getting that monkey off your back, getting that first win. A lot of drivers describe it, and Alice will know this better than me, as being more important, more significant than your first championship. That's what the thought was around the pen. And just so you know, McLaren are getting ready to take off the tyre blankets of Lando's car. He's got a new set of soft tyres, and out he goes. Well done, McLaren.
Well done indeed, McLaren. Nice shiny set of soft tyres as he heads out into the sunshine that glints off the papaya McLaren, and he pulls off to the side at the end of the pit lane to do a practice start as well. Just tucks in behind the Racing Bulls of Liam Lawson, who should make his way off first. But Lando Norris, with that number 1 on the front of his car, the reigning world champion, should get hopefully a decent 20-minute session before we'll have to head back to the garage and get ready for qualifying later on today. That's coming up on 5 Sports Extra, 5 to 6 in the morning. And Lando Norris out on track then in his McLaren with 23 minutes and 35 seconds on the clock. But that's the thing, just coming back to Antonelli, as both Mercedes are topping the times. Russell ahead of Antonelli. I mean, with that win as well, you look at the championship standings, he's now he is second. He's 7 points adrift of teammate Russell with 51 points and Antonelli with 47. Then it's Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, the top 4. Ollie Behrman inside the top 5. Mercedes leading the Constructors' Championship with 98 points. Then it's Ferrari, McLaren, Haas and Red Bull, the top 5. So it is a monkey off your back. I'm sure it must be. But it feels like he's always had the right people around him, and now it's just building that up. You got Pete Bonington. I thought that was a really significant moment to see Bono up on the podium with him, and to have a man with his kind of experience helping Kimi develop as not only a driver, but I suppose is there an element to say as a person as well. Just 19 years of age and still figuring out maybe who he is and who he becomes.
I mean, 100%. He's got the right people around him. He's got Toto. He's got Pete, as you said, who are experienced people. They know what it takes to win championships. Look what they've had the experience with Lewis Hamilton. But still 19 is a young age. But I think growing up in motorsport, it can mature you pretty quickly when you're out at your young age. You're at 7, 8 years old, and a lot of drivers start a lot younger than that now. And you're going off racing, go-karting at the weekend, having to meet new people, talk to new people, say how the go-kart's feeling. You do grow up quite quickly, and still 19 is of course a very young age, but he did a great job. Of course, no doubt, of course, it's life-changing, winning your first Grand Prix, having that confidence, and maybe that's just given him a little bit of belief and being like, actually, maybe I can beat Russell. Probably deep down he felt like he could, but he just needed to see it. We have to remember, of course, George missed out on that first run on in Q3 in China because he had that issue. That would have certainly hindered his second lap because you didn't get a gauge of what it feels like on that soft tyre with those track conditions at that moment in time. Could it have been slightly different? Possibly. Maybe we would have seen Russell on pole. Who knows? But Antonelli took that moment. He stole it. He got it off the line and he drove a brilliant race.
He certainly did. And right now he's back out there on an outlap along with Russell. They are 1 and 2. Leclerc 3rd, Piastri 4th, Hamilton 5th. Then it's Bortoletto up in 6th ahead of Arvid Lindblad in 7th. Hülkenberg, Verstappen and Lawson make up the remainder of the top 10. Hadjar, Behrman, Gasly, Ocon, Sainz are the top 15. Albon, Colapinto, Perez, Bottas, Alonso and Stroll. And Lando Norris, finally, with his first lap of the day, puts that McLaren up into 11th, 1.5 seconds off the pace on the soft tyre, but crucially, he's out there and he's running round.
Exactly, it's going round as McLaren's pit wall watch on, and we've got a jostle for position at the final chicane as well. Looked like Piastri potentially trying to set up for a lap, but was he having to get out of the way for one of the Red Bulls? It's not a great way to set up a lap, is it? Because it's quite slow. Is Piastri? He's on an outlap is he on a soft tyre? So that was a weird way to set up a lap. But he's on one now. Let's see if he can make any improvements.
As he plunges down through turns 1 and 2 and up through the S's he goes. Hamilton at the moment in the pit lane, 5th fastest, 8/10 off the pace. Jenny, what more have you got on Hamilton?
They've just done a few setup changes, tweaks on the suspension before they send him back out. The soft tyres have gone onto that car and they are preparing to send him out momentarily. On the other side of the garage, Charles Leclerc still in the garage in his car, but no tyres on that car at the minute.
Thanks, Jen. Piastri out there on a lap. Russell faster in the first sector. Antonelli coming through the first sector now. We'll see what the split is momentarily. And the last bit of running before we go qualifying. Antonelli a little bit slower than Russell in the first sector. Piastri down on the first sector as well. Piastri ahead of these two, coming through Spoon now and launches his McLaren down the stretch towards 130R. Straight line mode activated, fastest of anybody though through the middle sector, deploys the battery down towards 130R before he lifts off the throttle through the left-hander to refill that battery, braking for the final chicane. The Casio triangle curves his way round the final right-hander, pit lane entry to your right. He stays on the road, improves his lap time, stays 4th, 4/10 down.
Yeah, he fired a little bit too much speed into that final chicane, but Russell has made improvements. He's 129.616. Now we wait for Antonelli, who's stolen the fastest middle sector from Oscar Piastri. Is he going to jump ahead of his team? He does. 2.5 tenths of a second.
Hello, game on.
Certainly is. Lando Norris is out there on another lap as well, hoping to make improvements, but Piastri, he lost pretty much 6/10 in the first sector because, well, I'm going to put it down to that really poor run onto the main straight, because I think he was getting out of the way of the Red Bull. Remember, he's already under investigation for impeding, so he didn't want to be under investigation again. But personal best, Harry, for Norris in the first sector, but it's still 7/10 of a second off of what we saw from George Russell.
Yeah, let's see what he's got in the middle sector. Of course, Norris very much running out of sequence. Just to compare lap times here, Norris on his 4th lap now. Piastri's done 11. Norris, who was in the garage for the majority of this session with an energy recovery system issue on the Mercedes power unit, making his way through 130R now. But seeing a few drivers then come back out in this last quarter of the session, stick that soft tyre on and get a final quali simulation in before we go qualifying later on today, and figure out who will be on pole position. And we got Ollie Behrman round on the stretch towards 130R, but he somehow saved it. We've caught the end of it. What on earth happened there for Ollie Behrman? We'll have to get a replay of that, but certainly he's found himself sliding sideways down that back stretch towards 130R, managed to turn the Haas back round facing the right way and carried on with seemingly little damage. I think the tyres might be feeling it.
It's going to be the curb, I think. Could be quite aggressive on the exit of Spoon. Let's have a little look. Oh, it was going before the curb, yeah. And around he goes. Nice save, though. Well done, Mr. Behrman.
That could have gone for the wall. But yeah, that was before the curb. He just lost it coming through the sort of final part of the corner.
Yeah, it was quite early on, wasn't it? And around he went. Let's have. He had set a personal best in the first. Obviously not a personal best in the second. Let's listen to Russell.
That was good save.
Come up into the comms box, George. It was a good save.
I reckon Russell would make a half-decent commentator one day. Needs a bit of media training still, though.
Maybe you could. Maybe that's an avenue for you in the next 5 weeks.
I think George. So. Well, you're going to be lead commentating at some point, so that's going to do me out of the job.
Yeah, you're out of the job, mate. Sorry.
I'm going to have to start training drivers in the media sense. Right, looks like Behrman's made it back to the garage. Jenny's outside.
Certainly has, with 4 very large flat spots on those tyres. They've been taken away from my view, but they're at the back of the garage and the cameras are on them. They're massive flat spots, and I have to say, great save. That must have been a hairy moment for Oliver Behrman, but as his team principal was saying yesterday, Komatsu, he is so calm, so poised, and he's brought something to this team that they didn't have before, and he says it's just so great to work with. He's very mature for someone so young. So yeah, really impressed by that. Sorry, Jenny, to just cut in. I just love watching the onboard through Spoon. This is a track that's so tough on the driver's neck, and you could actually see Mr. Behrman's. He was holding his head up perfectly, but you could just see how much his head was trying to stay up from the G-forces round Spoon, and that's not the reason why he spun, but it's a lot of load. It's a tough race on the body for these drivers, and you're probably thinking, well, there's less downforce, but if their car, it can actually be more difficult if the car's squirming around more as well, because you're fighting the car. It's a bit more of a workout, but no, great to see the onboard of how physical it can be. Still, with these new regulations, driving a Formula 1 car, as Bortoleto we're riding on board with now. Another driver who I've been, again, I think he had personally a great season last year, and he's had a good start to life with Audi this year, and actually they're doing pretty well at the moment. 5th for Hulkenberg, 1.3 seconds off, and Bortoleto is about to set his first lap time on a soft tyre.
Yeah, they're very much in that midfield pack, aren't they? But Bortoleto was on the back foot yesterday, had a precautionary gearbox change, which left him with very little running in free practice too. But personal best for the Brazilian, who finished 9th in Australia and couldn't start the race in China. Unfortunately for Audi, they've had one race for each driver where they've not been able to start. For Nico Hulkenberg, he didn't manage to take to the start in Australia, but did manage to finish just outside the points in China. So Hulkenberg searching for his first points of the year. Bortoleto's already bagged them, and I was quietly impressed with Audi. I still am. I'm disappointed and a little bit sad about the Jonathan Wheatley news. He's left as team principal for personal reasons. Of course, the rumour mill is in overdrive about where he's going, with all the Aston Martin chat looming. But wherever he ends up going, it won't be for a little while, because there'll be, I'm sure, an enormous amount of gardening leave that he has to serve. But it felt like that was a really good partnership there with Wheatley and the way the two drivers operated underneath him as well. Yeah,
no, it is sad, and I'm not sure what the ins and outs are really there. But yeah, like you said, Harry, rumours going around about Aston Martin. But I think, unfortunately, Aston Martin needed a lot more than just Mr. Wheatley to sort their issues. But I know that from seeing what Mr. Wheatley posts on social media, how much he respects and admires the drivers that he's got, or he had, should I say, at Audi. And unfortunately, whatever's gone on, he's like you said, taking a lot of gardening leave, I expect. But just touching back to Audi and how impressed you were saying you were with them, I agree. Okay, you're probably thinking, well, they've just taken over Sauber. It's not really a new team, but they are the power unit. But they have generated a lot of experience from Max Verstappen from Formula E, and I say that because obviously he's not a huge fan of Formula E. They had the powertrains in Formula E, and have got a lot of knowledge about regeneration and the batteries from racing in Formula E. And they departed Formula E several seasons ago, and actually Sam Bird would have had experience with racing on an Audi battery, as have I from doing some work in Formula E as well, and they were really strong in that championship, and so I'm not surprised that they've come across into Formula One and are being pretty strong at the moment.
Yeah, and of course the Audi brand, hugely successful across motorsport. Look at their rally success, sports cars, 13-time Le Mans winners as well, and they've set themselves a 5-year plan to be challenging for world championships, so from sort of 2030 onwards, that's the goal.
I mean, some people are probably thinking 5 years, but trust me, that's for a team to have that kind of goal, that's quite impressive. It's with how competitive Formula One is. It's if they can, then fair play. That would be very impressive. So of course we'll just have to wait and see. As Max Verstappen, personal best for him, Harry, in the first and middle sector, but not the final sector, improves his time to 7th, but still 1.5 seconds off the pace of Antonelli in the Mercedes.
Yeah, just final word on that. I should just say that Mattia Binotto, who is head of the F1 project at Audi, has taken over in the interim, but has confirmed that Audi are looking for a replacement for Jonathan Wheatley. So it's not just Mattia Binotto becoming team principal now. They are going to be looking for a replacement for him. But into the final 10 minutes now of this final practice session then. And it's Antonelli and Russell, the two Mercedes, who lead the way by quite some margin. 0.8 of a second back to Leclerc in 3rd. Piastri's out there, just coming through the hairpin now in 4th. Hulkenberg, the top 5.
Yeah, that was a snap of oversteer. Just as Oscar Piastri was rolling off the brake into turn 11, that certainly would have cost him some time. He has done a personal best in the first sector, still half a second off what George set several laps ago. As let's see if this is potentially a personal best. No, it's not, but I think that is down to that big snap in the middle of turn 11. But Antonelli, this is where this order could potentially change a little bit more. Maybe not so much at the top. Antonelli's out on another set of soft tyres. Doesn't do a personal best in the first sector. Oscar across the line doesn't improve his lap time.
Jenny, news you bring.
Lando Norris, he's back out on track. He's currently P9, and last 10 minutes he's gone out on track. Hopefully a bit more time. He's lost so much time in the session.
Yeah, down in 9th, but crucially out there, which is better than not in these final stages where everyone's bolted on, pretty much everyone's bolted on a soft tyre, and Verstappen on the radio.
What is going on with the shifts again on one lap? It's just horrendous.
In the corner, please, Max.
Everywhere.
Max Verstappen wondering what's going on with his downshifts, not enjoying them. Jean-Pierre Lamberti asking, could you give me a particular corner? Max Verstappen responding with, it's every corner.
Yeah, it's that's why I chuckle. Just a typical Max answer. So that could have also be down to the energy recovery system and harvesting energy under braking. That could make the downshifts a little bit more aggressive, or certainly not to Max's liking. It wasn't an improvement though for Antonelli, but it was in the final sector, just to point out. Lando Norris is going very slowly, around 130R. I assume this is just on a build lap. He's going to have one of the Alpines coming up quite fast behind him, and yeah, so Lando on to a push lap. He'll be looking to improve, to edge closer at least towards his teammate.
Yes, Colapinto in the Alpine coming up behind him, but getting some representative soft tyre running in for this final 6 minutes or so. Pirelli bringing the hardest trio in the range when it comes to tyres this weekend. The C3 acting as the soft tyre, the C2 as the medium tyre, and the C1 making its season debut here in Japan as the hard tyre. And just looking ahead to what we might see on Sunday, it was a one-stop strategy for Max Verstappen last year that saw him take the win, although it was a pretty dry race last year in terms of the weather and in terms of overtaking and excitement, because I think there was only one legitimate move on the actual track. I'm probably over-exaggerating there, but he started on the medium tyre, went to the hard, and then went to the end after that. So it is going to be interesting to see what Sunday delivers in terms of wheel-to-wheel action like we've seen from the first two races.
We will see more overtakes, that's guaranteed. I really hope it is now I've said that, but I expect that we will certainly see some more, just with the nature of harvesting the energy here, regenerating with the battery. I expect that. Lando Norris, let's have a look. It's a personal best in the first and the middle sector. He's still a chunk down though in that first, which he's going to move up though into sixth place, edges closer to his teammate, 0.2 of a second off him. I have to shout, Lindblad is doing a solid job for the lack of running. This is a tough track to come to as a rookie. He is at the moment ahead of his teammate, but I don't think Lawson has set a time on the soft tyre. But he is on an outlap now, is Lawson, so expect that to change as we're going to see Antonelli get wheeled back into the garage. So both Mercedes, a solid job for both of them at the moment. And particularly for Antonelli, that'll be a nice smile on his face heading into qualifying.
Yeah, good boost for him as we're going to get a look at Liam Lawson, who was out there on the soft tyre coming into Spoon. What happened? Gets on the green Astro on the way in to the corner. It unsettles the car and he has a big snap.
What the man? Oh my God. I mean, yeah, he just literally parked it on the apex the whole way through.
He's pointing about the Haas. That wasn't my first indication of why Liam Lawson went wide there, but Alice, you're the racing driver.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm not there with you, Liam. The Haas, okay, if he didn't have that snap of oversteer, the Haas would have 100% been in the way, but he had that snap so early on going into turn 13, into Spoon, that wasn't really going to massively affect him. As that didn't sound very nice there from the Aston Martin, and it's slowing down is Fernando Alonso. Has he just bailed, or has he got a potential problem? It was a personal best for him in the first sector, but it was still 1.5 seconds off what the Mercedes is doing at the top of the timesheets.
Yeah, Aston Martin very much glued to the bottom of the timesheet. Stroll 21st, 4.1 seconds adrift. Alonso a couple of hundredths behind him in 22nd and has just backed out of that last lap. 3 minutes left on the clock then. Jenny Gow.
Someone's just sent me a statistic saying, I hope this is right, Lando Norris has been affected by some kind of issue with his car 10 out of the 13 sessions so far this season. That's got to be more than just bad luck, surely.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you there. It's got to be something more. Something's not talking right between the McLaren and the Mercedes power unit, because yeah, that's really bad luck if it is. But I think there is something a bit more going on down there at McLaren.
Well, for Lando Norris, he's actually the first reigning champion not to have a podium in the first two Grand Prix of the following season since Lewis Hamilton back in 2009.
Oh,
if we're talking stats,
yeah,
there's another one for you. But he's only a couple of tenths off, nearly 3 tenths off Oscar Piastri, and considering Piastri's had a full run in FP3 and Norris has had about 20 minutes. That's not too shabby from the reigning champion. He's currently lying in 6th, 1.2 seconds off, just ahead of Hulkenberg. Actually, you talk about Lindblad, who's been doing well. Lawson is 12th ahead of him. The two Audis are right up there, 7th and 9th for Hulkenberg and Borsaletto. And Gasly snuck inside the top 10, ahead of Hadjar in the second Red Bull.
Yeah, no, it's looking pretty. Oh, this is Lindblad getting out of the way or catching traffic. No, he's getting out of the way, but in not the best. They're all kind of congregating at the Degners as one of the Red Bulls was coming through, which looked like to be on a push lap.
But this Ferrari's off his head. I don't know who this. Yeah, I don't.
Just overtake them.
Simple instruction, just overtake them. Yeah, it's a lot easier said than done though when you're sat so low in a cockpit with tiny mirrors and you're kind of going over the hill, then down the hill into Degners, and you've got Formula 1 cars racing up behind you. So probably needed a little bit more help from his engineer there, but he did overtake them in the end as a small lock up from Gasly into turn 11.
Yeah, Gasly, who's done a great job so far for Alpine, I think, this year, considering they really struggled in Australia, and they struggled yesterday actually as well. But Gasly, points from both Grand Prix, 10th place in Australia, 6th place in China. Really good run. Sits 7th in the Drivers' Championship. Alpine sitting 7th. They finished last in the Constructors' Championship last year, and yes, we've got a long way to go still, but I think Gasly is certainly proving his worth as the more experienced member of that team right now.
Yes, he is. And actually, I think we were kind of expecting Colapinto to be doing slightly better. He's just a bit up and down, isn't he, Colapinto? One moment you think, oh, look, he's right there. He's with Gasly, and then he's not. Jenny obviously made a very good point that he's not raced here, but neither is Lindblad, and he is a couple of tenths off Liam Lawson. I think as a driver, not being with the simulator time that you get now, it's hard. Obviously, bum in seat round a track is important, but we're in free practice 3 now, and he should be up to speed with the circuit. So yeah, I wouldn't say that's really an excuse for him having not raced here before.
Yeah, Colapinto down in 18th. The clock has counted down to 0. Liam Lawson, first of the drivers to take the flag, and that is practice ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix done. And it is Mercedes 1 and 2. Kimi Antonelli quickest by 0.2 of a second, a 1:29.362 advantage then to the young 19-year-old, now a race winner in Formula 1. Russell second, Charles Leclerc in third for Ferrari, but a sizable gap, 0.8 of a second adrift of the Mercedes. Piastri a second off in fourth. Then Hamilton, Norris recovering after his ERS issue, kept him in the pit lane for the majority of that session in 6th. Nico Hulkenberg doing well for Audi up in 7th. Max Verstappen, all the times we've heard him on the radio so far today, not happy, down in 8th ahead of Gabriel Borsaletto. Pierre Gasly rounding out the top 10 for Alpine. Then comes Isaac Hadjar ahead of the 2 Racing Bulls of Lawson and Arvid Lindblad. Esteban Ocon 14th ahead of Ollie Behrman in 15th, who didn't get that last soft tyre run after his spin out of Spoon. He's out of the car though, and talking to his engineer Ronan O'Hare, and all smiles there, so I'm sure Behrman will recover from that in time for qualifying. Albon didn't see much of the Williams drivers in that session, but down in 16th ahead of Colapinto. The other Williams driver is Carlos Sainz at 18th. Then it's the 2 Cadillacs, Bottas ahead of Sergio Perez, and the 2 Aston Martins at the bottom of the timesheets. Lance Stroll 21st, Fernando Alonso in 22nd as the practice starts for those that remain out on track commence. Alice, biggest takeaways from the final practice session?
Oh, I have to say, it's looking, well, Mercedes are a chunk ahead, aren't they? They're 0.8 of a second clear as Antonelli at top. Okay, he's 2.5 tenths clear as George Russell is Kimi Antonelli of George Russell. But that's a chunk. That's a good. good, decent-sized gap that they've got there over Ferrari. But Oscar sneaking in between Lewis Hamilton, splitting up the Ferraris. But yeah, if Mercedes aren't on pole, I will be extremely shocked.
You'll eat your hat, perhaps.
I have, and I've got my woolly hat with me as well.
Excellent. Jenny, Kimi Antonelli, George Russell, fight for pole between the two Mercedes later on.
How exciting. Let's just see, when it comes to fight for pole, you've got to get things so right when it comes to these cars. I mean, used to of what the drivers have to do, how the energy is deployed, how you warm up, how you get your opening lap away before you do your fast lap. These are complex cars, and we're still only in the third race. So I think when it comes to this afternoon, do we have a race on our hands for qualifying on pole? I think so. I think there are a few people around here who think maybe they can get it.
Let's see what happens. Hope you can join us later for qualifying. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Andrew, as well. Qualifying for the Japanese Grand Prix. We'll be right here on 5 Sports Extra, 5 to 5 this morning, ahead of the green light coming on at 6 a.m. The fight for pole around Suzuka is on next. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.